Alright, so it's day 2 of my little birthday staycation, and I just missed, I turned on my camera a little too late to catch the building, but I'll show you a picture of it. Yeah, so the little bed and breakfast that I'm staying in just happens to be 2 doors down from my old church that I used to go to when I went to college at USF in the early 90s. That little parish still exists a few blocks away, but when I was going there, they were in this little house, which I believe the house was owned by the Catholic diocese. I don't know who owns it now. I'm pretty sure the church sold the house. I think it's in private hands now, but anyway, yeah, this little church house was a really special place to me, and it's so weird that yeah, I didn't realize that where I was booked to stay was like, you know, literally 2 doors away from that little house that I'd spent so much time in, you know, when I first moved here to San Francisco. Anyway, interesting story, little ghost story time about that house, the church house. When I was there, I can't remember if it was actively haunted when I was there. I think it little bit was still. And when I say little bit was, I mean because at some point in time, it was really haunted. So the story behind the house, I mean, I don't remember the whole story of the house, but I'm pretty sure, I mean, it's a big house. So I think, you know, that the house was built by some wealthy, you know, some wealthy early 20th century finance person, you know, during the big boom when San Francisco was booming. So it was built by some businessman, and I think he lost everything or something, you know, in the Great Depression, you know, when the stock market crashed or something. The businessman lost all his shit and despaired, and I think he had a business partner. And anyway, there was a murder-suicide thing happening in that house. So the businessman like shot his business partner person and himself in the living room or the dining room, or, you know, whatever the big parlor main room on the ground floor was. And that room, that is the room that was used, like converted as the sanctuary for the little church. So I think they thought, you know, well, you know, if we're saying mass and doing prayer and ritual and all this like light work over this dark space, then I think this will help neutralize the dark energy in this home. And I think, you know, to an extent, I think that was very helpful. But then there was all this like crazy stuff that would happen at night, right? So the priest, the main priest of the parish, I think for some time he did stay in that house, but then I think he decided, no, it's not a restful place. He wouldn't stay there. But one story they told me was like when an archbishop or somebody, like a bishop or an archbishop, was staying overnight in that house, and he was upstairs, you know, sleeping, and he was awakened some night to the sound of horses, like horses running down the hall, which is impossible, which would be impossible to, like, you know, those halls are big, but they're not big enough for horses to run down, right? So anyway, according to the story, the archbishop peeked out his bedroom door and saw horses running down the hall. So that really freaked him out, and then he didn't want to stay there any more nights. And I think that the parish priest ended up doing a full-on exorcism in the house. And after that exorcism, I'm not going to say that everything went away, but it calmed down a lot. But it traumatized the priest, actually, to where, like, he would not talk about that exorcism. And of course, you know, I wanted to know all the things, but I did not dare ask him about it because I was told, yeah, don't ask him about it. He doesn't talk about that. So, I mean, that's pretty bad if it freaked him out to that extent, right? So And then some of the other people in the church, some of the people who were pretty involved with things like, you know, cleaning up, tidying up, like maintenance of the property in between church services and stuff. So one of them had a dog. I don't remember the dog's name, but they said that like they would always bring their dog with them when they had to do any work alone in the house, because the house was so spooky and the energy was so weird sometimes, especially when you're alone in the house. So so they would always bring their dog. And anyway, they said the dog would never ever go into the basement. Like that dog would just kind of like whimper at the basement door and would never go into the basement. So there was that, and some other creepy crazy thing regarding the dog, but I don't remember the details of that story. But I just always think, you know, when I pass that house in the wild, which is rare, but you know, as I was walking by it the other day, I just like wonder, you know, the people who are in there now, like, do they still feel any spooky vibes in the house? Do they ever see crazy things? Is there crazy things happening in the basement? Like, what's going on in that house, you know? I'm so curious. I mean, San Francisco has so many weird little haunted places, so many. And I just wish I knew all the stories about all of them, and I wish I could just interview the people, the alive people, and also the dead people I wish I could interview, and the whatever else non-corporeal energies. Like, it's so fascinating. Like, we're passing all these houses and a bunch of them have ghost stories, and I just wish I knew all of them. So yeah, that's my ghost story of the day. I wish I had more, but yeah. So I'm just on my way to get a massage. I was gifted a massage for my birthday. Actually, it was I think for Christmas, but I'm using it for my birthday. So that's that. And then, oh, there's Lorraine Court. There's the Columbarium. Damn. Car bar was blocked the way. Well, I'll have to show you a picture of the Columbarium. So yesterday, I took a tour, the Land's End tour of Sutro Park. Just for the record, if you're in San Francisco City, I think it's City Tours. I'll look it up. They have like 70 free tours that they do in the city. They just request like a little donation, like a $20 donation, but they're free. So you don't have, if you don't have the $20, you can still go on the tour. So it was the tour of Sutro Heights Park, and I already knew a lot about Sutro Heights Park because I go there and I'm curious about the founder, Adolph Sutro. But something I learned that I didn't know was that in his will, Adolph Sutro willed to be cremated and interred at the Columbarium. And the Columbarium, which we just passed, that's where I'm going to be interred, assuming people follow my wishes. I already decorated my little spot. It's super cute. But anyway, Adolph Sutro, it was his will to be interred there. So he was interred there initially. And then someone signed him out, like signed out his cremains, his urn, but the signature was like illegible, so nobody knows who signed him out. But they let whoever did it, they let him do it anyway. So somebody signed him out, and then nobody knew where the urn went. Nobody knew where his remains went. And then at some point, when the city was digging up and stuff at Sutro Park, because after he passed and after his daughter let the place go into disrepair, blah 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 blah, and the city took over the land. The city, like, the buildings were in such disrepair that the city just had to like tear it down. So anyway, as they were doing all like the tear down and the demolition and getting rid of and digging, they found an urn buried on the property. Like, someone had buried an urn there, and it was, pretty sure, so it was that missing urn. It was Sutro's remains. Like, someone took him from the Columbarium and put him back in the grounds of his home, which in one way is, I don't know, it's kind of sweet, I guess, sort of, but it wasn't his will. That was not his wishes. He wanted to be in the Columbarium, like me. So anyway, they were returned to his family, and then his family put him in the ground at the cemetery in Colma. So he's at the same cemetery that my mother-in-law is in. I forgot the name of it. It's the big Jewish cemetery. And I've seen his grave, and I've taken pictures of it. And I don't know if I'll be able to dig up for you pictures of it that I took, but so I thought that was just where he was put in the first place, or that he was maybe in just one of those cemeteries in the city that got moved down to Colma back in the day. But I did not know that he got moved against his will, like twice. That's messed up, man. So, oh, and there's my old home. Oh, don't. Yeah, you saw my old window for like a hot second. I used to live in room number 720 in Hayes Healy Hall at USF. And I had a really nice view from that window, let me tell you. So anyway, yeah, so I had a ghost story for you and a mysterious grave sort of robbing story for you on the way to the massage. And then after the massage, I'm dropping off my book to some little free libraries, and that's that. And then today maybe we'll go walk around Mountain Lake, which I mentioned yesterday, and I didn't go there. So yeah, it's this book. It's not the Boost to Balance. I put my issues into tissues in the little free libraries because I have so many of them, and I sign them. Yeah. Usually I don't put any negative commentary in my books and stuff, but fuck ice, man. This is like what's happening. Holy shit. It's gonna be crazy times. I mean, it is crazy times, but like, Jesus. It's beyond politics, my friends. Way beyond politics. Yep, so we're crossing Haight Street. We're at the corner of Haight and Masonic. So for a lot of people, this is kind of like the gateway to the Haight-Ashbury neighborhood. And I think one of those might be like I don't remember if like the Grateful Dead house is somewhere here on Masonic or if it's on Ashbury. But there's all kinds of stories in all kinds of these houses here. I mean, everywhere. Like I said, there's stories and ghost stories and mayhem and wild stuff, and I wish I knew all of them. I always wanted to, like, when I'm dead, if I get to be a ghost, I would love to just like fly around into every single one of these houses in this whole entire city and just like snoop around and look at everybody's house and everybody's layout and everybody's ghosts and everybody's designs and crazy energy vortexes, and I just wanna see all of it. Yeah, so we're definitely in a more scenic neighborhood than you are accustomed to traveling with me in. We're going over the hill. The place I'm going is kind of near a neighborhood called Diamond Heights, so we're going to be on Diamond Street. We're right near the Randall Museum, which is a super cute museum if you have kids. I admire all these houses, but I wouldn't really want to live in this neighborhood. This is too much uphill and kind of hard to get around to other places. But it's beautiful. And yeah, when I'm a ghost, I'm gonna visit all these houses and look around. If possible. Yep, it's January 25th, and it is pretty nice around here. Much of the country is in a historic ice storm or something right now, like a historic cold thing happening. But yep, this is the mean streets of San Francisco winter. There was Sutro Tower we just passed. I can't get a good view of it, but I'm wearing a Sutro Tower shirt right now. I still haven't figured out how to get to the base of it to get a good picture. I think you're not supposed to be allowed to, but I think there's a way. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Don't forget your phone, keys, or wallet. There are more drop-off options in the app.
Here we are. Okay, so this video footage is pretty rough because it's low light and my camera phone a little bit sucks in low light, but I did want to share the moon over the moonset over the beach, and this is from today, February 3rd, and not the birthday staycation trip. So I didn't actually get very much beach footage from that trip. I mostly was just relaxing and being present, and not filming long videos and stuff. So yeah, so that's the trade-off. You know, you want to be present, but then you also want to share stuff. And I don't know the solution there. I guess body cams and stuff. But anyway, the other thing I wanted to share was remember how in the beginning of that trip it was kind of special and weird to realize that I was right there staying by my old church without being aware of it? Well, you know, one thing leads to another, and you go down a rabbit hole, and I was thinking about Father Stephen, who, you know, I haven't seen or spoken to in so many years. And I remember the last time I saw him, it was actually lunch. We had lunch together when I was visiting. I think it was around 95 or something, and I was talking to him. I was struggling a little bit about, you know, leaving the church, and one of my issues was around being trans. I hadn't, you know, I mean, I wouldn't actually transition for, you know, almost another 10 years, but I knew I was, and I talked to him about it. And I remember him being very compassionate and kind, and even telling me he wished he could, you know, wish us like a happy Pride and stuff from the pulpit, but that he couldn't, because not because of how he personally felt, but because of the church policy, the church rules and stuff. So that was very, very kind of him, and I always thought very, very well of him. He was always very, very special to me, Father Stephen. And then in later years, I wondered, you know, thinking back on that conversation, I was like, I bet Father Stephen is gay. I bet. And so, you know, I Googled him to see, you know, what is Father Stephen up to these days. And turns out, yep, I was right. Father Stephen was indeed gay, and he ended up leaving the priesthood just a few years after our last conversation, specifically so that he could be with his partner. And a little bit the more interesting / sad, poignant, whatever takeaway was, after he left the Jesuit order, he shortly thereafter became very involved with the Rosicrucian Order. And what is interesting to me is that, I mean, I don't know, probably like 2 or 3 years after he became involved with the Rosicrucian Order, I actually joined the Rosicrucian Order, but I never went to any of their in-person stuff. I mean, I visited the temple grounds and the museum and the little library, but I kind of kept my distance, and I studied. I did like the mail order thing, studied alone, and I just I don't know. I just had it in my head that the in-person stuff down there in San Jose would be just a bunch of like rich white people. You know, I just didn't think it would be my people, and I guess the tragic missed opportunity was to realize that on my, you know, at least 1 or 2 of my trips down there to that library, Father Stephen may well have been the librarian. like I may have actually said hello to him. He may have actually said to my face, welcome, can I help you? And I would have been like, no, thank you, I'm good. I mean, Jesus, like, if I'd known, if I'd known it was him, if I'd recognized him, I probably would have burst into tears or something. But I just think it's interesting that we ended up on similar paths, and like, what a missed opportunity. And if there's a million what ifs that we all think about, and I think about, and now I have a new what if I hadn't been socially just so standoffish. What if I had engaged with them in person and not just at a distance? What if I had allowed myself to see, like, well, is it just a bunch of annoying rich white people, or is it just normal people, just people? It was probably just people, because everywhere I go, almost, it's just people. Our projections and mental fears and stuff are usually a bunch of bullshit. But anyway, yeah, he became involved with the Rosicrucians, and he was so for the rest of his life. And very sadly, he passed away in 2019, which was sad. So there's a few recordings of him. I think I will link to one of them in the description here if you want to hear his voice. My dad also passed in 2019, and there was another priest who was meaningful in my life, and he was a friend of Father Stevens, and that was Father Joseph Francavilla in Virginia, who was my priest when I lived there. And one thing leads to another, and I was kind of like, oh yeah, what's Father Joe up to? I feel like I heard that he had passed, and yeah, sure enough, he had passed. And interestingly, he passed in the same year as Father Stephen, 2019. So that's interesting. In 2019, I lost 3 different father figures, representing different times of my life in different contexts. So I don't know what that's about, but it's interesting. So yeah, so I tacked on today's footage just to give more beach footage. And yeah, sorry I've been a little bit off my game. January is weird. January's a little rough, and I don't even know if people watch these. It's a weird format, but I just do what my little inner rocket says to do, and it said to make another one of these videos. I'm committed to making 10 of these. 10 is the commitment for the experiment. So yep, so enjoy the rest of this one. Yeah, keep on keeping on, and no matter how weird it gets out there, just remember the world keeps turning, and there's always beauty out there, especially at sunrise and sunset. So that's all I have to say about that.